Daniel, good to see you. Welcome to Popternative.
Thank you. My pleasure.
You know, it's
Happy to be.
excited to chat about this because it is an amazing time for horror films right now. And with this kind of, fantasy folk horror kind of component, I'm wondering if you ever think about the fact that this is kind of a really amazing time from an audience member with horror. So kind of doing things that are experimental or different. Like, I'm just wondering what you think about that, or if that came into play at all with putting this film together, how like big the industry is becoming.
I think, yeah, I was aware of that a little bit. I'd been working on this now for a few years, this project. So maybe it was like at the early stages of that was happening. I was sensing that was happening in the industry, and that was exciting. Yeah, to work on this story, this novella that had multiple elements. You know, it had a bit of horror, a bit of drama, a bit of almost like gothic romance. It was a wicked mix of ideas, and it felt refreshing to work on a project like that. And it is a rare opportunity then it was to work on something like that and to make a film that was like unidentifiable. You know, it wasn't quite horror, wasn't but ultimately a horror audience I think would watch it and then maybe
Yes.
experience other things that they might not see in a usual like slasher or gore film. I think that for me, I think that's how I got into film as well, though. You know, like horror was my first love.
Yeah.
You're into bit bigger, sort of broader horrors at first, but then as you get older, you start to explore other things. You know, you get into David Lynch or Von Trier or whoever, and Haneke, and you start to sort of realize that horror can be something else as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's interesting because, you wrote this and you directed this. And I'm just wondering if did that feel natural because you're naturally wearing many hats and you're very into this project with a lot of kind of things going on with working with the actors and putting it together creatively. What was that kind of back and forth with writing this thing and then cool, it's ready to go to camera, you have to direct it. Like, was that natural for you? What was that experience like for you being a writer and director on this?
Yeah, it was natural. I'd done it on Apostasy as well, you know. So I had those uh, jobs separated as well. I worked on the script for a year, just focused on the script, and then I put my director's hat on, you know, and um, but ultimately it helped though because so many things were going wrong on set. I was having to drop scenes, losing locations. The weather was affecting us. Props weren't ready, and because I was writing the script, it meant that I could go home and quickly fix it, you know, combine scenes into one and turn up the next day with new sides for the actors. And I think if I wasn't the writer as well, I don't know how I don't think I would have finished the film.
Yeah, no, for
'Cause I
sure.
was, yeah, I was like up all night working on the script, fixing and changing things to make it work.
So much kind of happens though before you go to camera on Acre, right? Like there's so many things that you have to figure out and then you go film it. So in a lot of ways you can look at it as like one journey, right? With multiple steps, or you could see it as kind of like two journeys before and after filming it. Was it one journey or two journeys for you from a storytelling acting perspective and directing perspective?
God, it was one big journey. I think, yeah, it was ever changing. You know, especially on location. I didn't know what was happening, so because I didn't know how to get through things at certain points. You know, because so many things weren't working for me
Yeah.
that I just then had to sort of trust in it. You know, I had to like trust in the idea, not worry too much about the particulars about the script or certain scenes or sequences. I was like, right, okay, what's the essence of what I'm trying to do here, and let's figure out how to capture that. You know, and that's what was great about the two lead actors as well. They were along for the ride as well. They weren't against any of that. They were happy to not improvise, but like get given new scenes that day and to try those things out and to experiment. You know, other actors would have said no to that, but both Matt and Miv, yeah, were love to do that.
I want to know you started this interview off talking about the landscape of horror and there's different things going on and there's different ways to scare people and the idea of doing kind of the folk horror, the fantasy and everything. What do you think is something in your film that really makes it stand out, even maybe for like folk horror and everything, because that's really big right now. But what in your opinion is something that, like, after you saw the final product where you're like, wow, this is something that really could stand out when it's kind of disseminated to the horror community? I'm just curious about that a little bit.
That's a good question. It's hard to answer. It's more for the audience to work that out if there is one. But I think after I'd read the book, I think for me it was like the sense of that Andrew was tapping into something like ancient about springtime and about rebirth and resurrection, and how that concept has like changed over time, depending on which religion or belief system.
Yeah.
So I like that, this timeless quality to it. And then also the symbol of the hair and what that has represented throughout time as well, what it represented to the Greeks and to the pagans and then to Christians. So there was that element to it. And then also it's just a deeply like honest story as well. So I think hopefully people take that away, that it has a wicked combination of horror moments, but then also just real emotion,
Absolutely.
and honest acting. So hopefully that combination is interesting to people.
I'm really
sorry. And then one other thing is like the combination
of styles. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a good question, man. I think it's a combination of styles as well. Like I think there's left turns in this film that I've enjoyed when I watch it back. I don't want to spoil it for people, but there are sort of moments where okay, now we're in this kind of film, and this has been a sort of stylistic choice now, and you sort of have to go along with it. And the people that do, I think, will enjoy it and find that fun.
Absolutely. You have to go in fresh with this film. And like from my perspective, I don't want to ask questions about like the plot and things, because I don't want I want people just going fresh, because that's what I did, and it was crazy. You know what I mean? But I do want to ask before we wrap. Last question. You talk about your actors and everything. Matt, so good in this. I'm just wondering specifically, like, what are those conversations with Matt, director to actor specifically, about kind of his approaches and his character, and kind of the quick kind of like growth we see with his character throughout this like film. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, at the beginning it was like quite typical. We were working up from the beginning with the character. We'd have biographies. Matt has a particular way of working where he builds from the kind of accent up as well. So he's working on his accent a lot, trying to get that old like Yorkshire 70s Alan Bennett kind of feel to his voice, and just building it up from there. And then on set is where it got really interesting, because of the way that we had to adapt all the time, and on set we were talking just a lot about what was going on psychologically, and emotionally with the characters. And sometimes I give them kind of dual motives as well. So you've got these two sort of things that are happening at once, and this is the nature of grief and the situation you're in. Let's just see you sort of process this on screen. So quite a lot of scenes there isn't much dialogue. It's just watching characters go through these kind of really difficult emotions.
Yeah. No, and then actually, another last question too. I find it interesting because, you make this film and then you wait, and then, audiences get a chance to see it. And we're obviously talking about the, Brainstorm Media US kind of release of this, and it's really exciting. And I'm just curious, because when I asked you that big question about what like sets Star Maker apart from other things, you were like, oh, it like the audience has to figure that out. And I agree with you. Is it starting to like sink in a little bit that like the audiences are really going to be able to watch it, like, for you? Like, or is that something that's only going to maybe sink in once people start watching it? Like, I'm curious about that.
Good question. I think it's starting to sink in. Yeah, it's nice to see the response in the States. I guess I was quite nervous about that. Like, I had no idea how people would react to it, and there's been a good, there's generally been great response. So I'm feeling sort of relieved, and people seem to get it, and enjoy it. I know it's not like everybody's cup of tea, but people who this is made for, I think, will like it and enjoy it.
But it's an opportunity maybe for people that maybe it isn't their cup of tea, because, like we said in the beginning of the interview, right? Like, there's so much happening in horror movies right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not like a big in-your-face horror. It's quite a creepier film as well. So yeah, it depends what you're used to and what you like.
No,
Totally.
absolutely. And I can't wait for people to check it out. Daniel, so great chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Great. Nice talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.